Blood rained from Richard Bennett's smug face as his production lines ground to a halt, the sickening realization dawning that I'd built a kill switch into every system they'd stolen from me. After 11 years of loyal service, they thought they could discard me like yesterday's trash, but they were about to learn exactly who Jake Miller really was. I spent 11 years of my life turning Riverton Manufacturing into a technological powerhouse, and I loved every minute of it. Back when I started, their systems were practically ancient paper logs, manually tracked inventory, and a network infrastructure that crashed if you looked at it wrong. I remember walking into that dingy server room my first day, disk coating everything, exposed wires dangling from the ceiling like some kind of digital jungle. "Think you can fix this mess?" Warren Hawkins had asked, his bushy eyebrows lifting with skepticism. I just nodded, already mapping out upgrades in my head. Within 6 months, I had overhauled their entire network, designed custom inventory tracking software, and integrated the production floor systems for real-time monitoring. Warren started calling me his digital miracle worker, and for the first time since college, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Those early years were the happiest of my life. Melissa and I had just bought our dream house, a cozy colonial with a wraparound porch where we'd host summer barbecues for the neighborhood. I'd come home after long days of coding, and she'd be waiting with a cold beer and a smile that could light up a room. "My tech genius," she'd say, nestling into my arms. We talked about starting a family, about growing old on that porch watching grandkids play in the yard. But life has a way of shattering even the most perfect dreams. The 80-hour work week started taking their toll. "You're married to that company, Jake, not to me," Melissa would say, her voice growing colder as months passed. I kept promising things would slow down once the systems were stable. They never did. By year 5 at Riverton, I was sleeping on my brother Mike's lumpy pull-out couch, divorce papers signed, and my perfect life reduced to 2 suitcases and a laptop bag. I threw myself into work even harder after that. The pain was too raw, too fresh to face in quiet moments. The humming server rooms became my sanctuary, a place where problems had solutions, where logic ruled and emotions couldn't interfere. I built a team from the ground up, handpicking each member. Sophia joined first, brilliant network engineer with a laugh that echoed through the hallways. Then came Diego, coding prodigy who could debug a system faster than anyone I'd ever met. "We're like a family here," I told them during late-night pizza sessions as we rolled out new updates. And I believed it. For the first time since Melissa left, I felt whole again. My custom system sync interface became my masterpiece, a proprietary system that seamlessly integrated every aspect of production across Riverton's 3 manufacturing facilities. I'd actually developed the core algorithm during a hackathon years before joining Riverton, refining it nights and weekends until it was perfect. When I implemented it at Riverton, productivity jumped 37% in the first quarter alone. The board was ecstatic. "You've saved this company, Jake," Richard Bennett had said, clapping me on the back after that quarterly meeting. "You'll always have a home here." I remember the warmth that spread through my chest at those words. After losing my real home, my marriage, my sense of belonging, Riverton had become my anchor in the storm. I moved out of Mike's place eventually, got a small apartment near the office. The walls were bare except for my Riverton Employee of the Year plaque 3 years running. I had no personal life to speak of, but I had purpose. I had respect. I had what I thought was security. God, what a fool I was. The day I saw Tyler Hawkins strutting through my department, Warren's nephew fresh out of MIT with his designer's suit and the condescending smirk, something cold settled in my stomach. But even then, I couldn't imagine they'd throw away 11 years of loyalty like it meant nothing. I should have known better. In business, loyalty is just another commodity to be bought, sold, and discarded when it no longer serves the bottom line. I had been noticing subtle changes around the office for weeks. Small things at first meetings I normally attended suddenly rescheduled without my knowledge, hushed conversations that stopped when I walked by, and forced smiles from executives who used to greet me with genuine enthusiasm. "You're being paranoid," I told myself, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror one Tuesday morning. Dark circles had formed under my eyes from too many sleepless nights. But something in my gut kept screaming that trouble was brewing. That afternoon, I was knee-deep in code when my system pinged with an unauthorized access alert. Someone had tried to enter my admin portal from Richard Bennett's office computer. My heart pounded against my ribs as I traced the digital footprint. This wasn't the first attempt. For weeks, someone had been systematically probing my security protocols, looking for weaknesses. I confronted Warren the next day, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the security breach. "Probably just IT running some routine checks," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Nothing to worry about, Jake." But the following week, my all-access badge suddenly wouldn't open the executive floor. When I called IT, Melissa, new hire I barely knew, informed me that my clearance had been adjusted per management request. The final piece clicked into place when I walked into the break room and overheard 2 accounting clerks gossiping. "Did you see Warren's nephew, fresh out of MIT and already has his own office on the executive floor?" "Tyler Hawkins, right. Heard he's being groomed for something big." My coffee cup nearly slipped from my hand. Tyler Hawkins. The name had come up in company emails always carefully excluded from my distribution lists, but visible in the metadata if you knew where to look. That Friday, Richard's assistant scheduled a lunch meeting at Maxwell, the upscale steakhouse, where the company took clients they were desperate to impress. My stomach nodded as I sat across from Richard, watching him nervously adjust his tie. "Jake, you've been invaluable to Riverton," he began, voice dripping with rehearsed sincerity. "But the board feels we need to move in a new strategic direction with our IT infrastructure." The words washed over me like ice water. 6 weeks to transition everything to Tyler Hawkins. A generous severance package. Opportunity to pursue other interests. I barely registered the rest of the conversation as memories flashed through my mind, sleeping under my desk during the server migration, missing my nephew's birth to handle a production line emergency, cancelling anniversary plans with Melissa to finish the warehouse system sacrifices that had ultimately cost me everything personal while I built Riverton's technological foundation. "What about System Sync?" I asked, my voice surprisingly calm despite the rage building inside me. "That's my proprietary system. I developed the core algorithm before I ever stepped foot in Riverton." Richard's smile tightened. "Actually, Jake, your employment contract is quite clear. All intellectual property developed during your tenure belongs to Riverton Manufacturing. But I created it before." "Our legal team has reviewed everything thoroughly," he interrupted. "System Sync is company property. Tyler's already been working with the codebase for weeks. He thinks it's a bit old school, but he's confident he can modernize it for our upcoming needs." Old school? My hands clenched under the table. The system I'd poured my soul into was being handed to some entitled kid who'd never built anything from scratch in his life. When I returned to my office, I discovered my admin privileges had been downgraded. I couldn't access the very systems I had created. A decade of work locked away from me in an instant. That night, I sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by the ghostly blue light of my laptop screen. Rain tapped against the window as I scrolled through old emails, searching for proof that System Sync had been mine before Riverton. Then I found it an email to Mike from 11 years ago, with the original algorithm attached. Dated 3 months before my interview with Warren. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Just heard the news. This is bullshit, Jake. What are you going to do?" What was I going to do? The question echoed in my mind as I stared at the evidence on my screen. 11 years of loyalty meant nothing to them. They were taking everything: my work, my creation, my legacy. I thought of Melissa, of the life we'd planned together that I'd sacrificed for this company. I thought of all the nights I'd missed with my brother's family, promising I'd make it up to them someday. Something hardened inside me, then a cold, crystalline resolve forming around the raw wound of betrayal. I wouldn't go quietly. I wouldn't let them steal what was rightfully mine. I picked up my phone and typed back to Sophia, "I'm going to remind them exactly who built this company's backbone and what happens when they break it." I'd been planning for this moment since that rainy night in my apartment, methodically documenting everything while appearing to cooperate with their transition plan. Every fake smile I gave Tyler during our knowledge transfer sessions concealed the ticking time bomb I was crafting beneath the surface. The acquisition news leaked on a Thursday. Tech Core Industries, one of the biggest names in manufacturing automation, was in talks to purchase Riverton for $340 million. Their press release specifically highlighted our proprietary synchronization technology as a key asset. My technology. I almost threw my laptop across the room when I saw the announcement. Richard and Warren weren't just stealing my work, they were selling it for a fortune while pushing me out with a pathetic severance package. That night, I barely slept, pacing my apartment until dawn broke over the city skyline. The faces of everyone I'd sacrificed for haunted me: Melissa signing our divorce papers, my brother's disappointed expression at another missed holiday, my parents' funeral I'd attended via FaceTime because of a critical system upgrade. By morning, my hands were steady despite the storm raging inside me. I opened my personal laptop and began the final phase of my plan. "You sure about this?" Sophia asked when we met for coffee that weekend. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. She'd been working overtime helping Tyler understand systems that had taken us years to perfect. "They left me no choice," I said, sliding a USB drive across the table. "This is documentation proving I developed System Sync before Riverton, the original algorithm, dated emails, even the GitHub commits on my personal account." "Jake," she whispered, "what exactly are you planning to do?" I took a deep breath. Something they'll never see coming. Monday morning, my last official day, I handed in my company laptop and badge with a practice smile. Richard didn't even bother to show up for my exit interview, just HR with their corporate forms and rehearsed well wishes. Tuesday passed. Wednesday. Thursday. I waited, knowing exactly what was coming. At precisely 9:17 Monday morning, 1 week after my departure, my phone exploded with notifications. First Sophia, "It's happening." Then Diego from production, "Everything's down." Then a series of increasingly panicked messages from numbers I didn't recognize. I watched from a coffee shop across town as my masterpiece unfolded. The digital signature verification I'd embedded into 3 critical components of System Sync had activated, checking for a valid license that no longer existed. One by one, all 3 production facilities ground to a halt, assembly lines frozen, robotic arms suspended mid-motion, inventory systems flashing error codes no one but me understood. My phone rang Richard's number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. The 4th time, I answered. What the hell is happening? His voice cracked with panic. I believe you're experiencing a licensing verification issue, I replied calmly, watching steam rise from my untouched coffee. Fix it, now. We're losing thousands every minute. I could picture him pacing his corner office, tie loosened, that vein in his forehead pulsing the way it did when quarterly numbers miss projections. I'd love to help, Richard, but as you reminded me at Maxwell's, I no longer work for Riverton Manufacturing. Listen to me, you little... No, you listen, I cut him off, my voice ice cold. System Sync was developed before I joined Riverton. I have documentation proving it. The algorithm you're about to sell to TechCore for millions. That's my intellectual property. The silence on the other end was deafening. The TechCore deal, he finally whispered, is in serious jeopardy unless you acknowledge my ownership and agree to proper compensation. I took a sip of my coffee, suddenly finding it delicious. The technical team has already reached out to me directly, by the way. Seems they're more interested in the architect behind the system than the company that tried to steal it. Through the coffee shop window, I could see Riverton's building in the distance, imagining the chaos unfolding inside. Tyler Hawkins, the golden nephew, was probably staring helplessly at error messages no MIT education could possibly prepare him for. What do you want? Richard's voice had lost all its executive authority. What did I want? I wanted back the years I'd sacrificed. I wanted Melissa to have had a husband who came home for dinner. I wanted to have held my mother's hand when she took her last breath instead of listening over the phone while troubleshooting a server crash. But some things can't be recovered, only properly valued going forward. My lawyer will send over the licensing agreement within the hour, I said, watching a bird land on the windowsill beside me. You might want to read it carefully this time. The clock is ticking, Richard, just like it was for me. The morning after my call with Richard, I woke to a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Rooftop cafe on Jefferson, 10 am, come alone. I arrived early, scanning the patio for threats. My fingers tapped nervously against my coffee mug while I waited. Just as I checked my watch for the 3rd time, a woman in a sleek charcoal suit slid into the chair across from me. Jake Miller, she said, not a question but a confirmation. I'm Vanessa Chen, Chief Technology Officer at TechCore Industries. My heart skipped. TechCore, the company supposedly buying Riverton. I've been following your work for years, she continued, sliding a folder across the table. Your System Sync architecture is brilliant, truly revolutionary. I opened the folder to find printouts of my code with handwritten notes in the margins. Technical observations, improvement suggestions, questions about implementation choices. We never wanted Riverton, Vanessa said bluntly. We wanted you. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. What? 6 months ago we identified your synchronization technology as game-changing, but when we approached Riverton, Richard claimed all your innovations were company property. She leaned forward. We didn't believe him, so we've been watching, waiting. When we heard they pushed you out, we deliberately leaked the acquisition used to force their hand. My mind raced back through every event of the past months. You engineered this. We needed to see how they'd react. Their rush to claim ownership confirmed our suspicions. She smiled thinly. Your little shutdown demonstration this morning was impressive, by the way. Showed exactly why we need you, not them. All this time. I whispered, memories flooding back the acquisition announcement that had sent me spiraling, the late-night plotting, the rage that consumed me. I thought I was the one playing chess. Vanessa slid another document across the table. Riverton is bleeding money by the minute. They'll sign your licensing agreement because they have no choice, but we're offering something different. I stared at the paper job offer. Director of Integration Technologies. Salary that made my eyes widen. Full creative control. And a 7-figure signing bonus. We don't want to buy your technology, Jake, Vanessa said. We want you to build the next generation with us. My phone buzzed with another desperate call from Richard. I silenced it without looking. What about Riverton? I asked. Once they sign your licensing agreement acknowledging your ownership, we'll reconsider our offer. Her smile turned predatory. At about 40% of the original valuation, without you, that's all they are worth. I remembered Richard's smug face at Maxwell's telling me I was easily replaceable. The irony was almost too perfect. I have conditions, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. My team, Sophia, Diego, and others, they come with me as partners, not subordinates. Already factored in, Vanessa replied. Great minds recognize other great minds. I looked out over the city skyline toward Riverton's headquarters, where executives were undoubtedly panicking, watching millions evaporate by the hour. When do we start? I asked. I sat in Tech Core's glass-walled conference room 3 months later, watching a presentation on our integration timeline. Our timeline. Sometimes I still couldn't believe how dramatically my life had changed. And thanks to Jake's implementation strategy, we were ahead of schedule by 6 weeks, Vanessa concluded, nodding my way. The room filled with approving murmurs. I glanced at Sophia and Diego, now senior architects with teams of their own, their faces displaying the same blend of pride and vindication I felt. We brought 17 people from my old department, and not just the best technical minds, but the ones with integrity, the ones who understood that loyalty flows both ways. When we filed out, my phone buzzed with a text from Richard, "Need to talk, important please." It was his 5th message this week. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and answered. That evening, I stood on my new balcony overlooking the river, nursing a whiskey, remembering that day at Maxwell's when Richard had told me I was easily replaceable. The memory no longer stung like it once had. In fact, I could almost thank him. "You look thoughtful," Vanessa said, joining me with her own glass. Our weekly strategy sessions often ended like this, informal conversations that shaped the future of the company. Just reflecting on the journey, I admitted. 6 months ago, I was sleeping on my brother's couch, thinking my career was over. She smiled. "And now you're our most valuable asset. The irony isn't lost on me." "Have you heard the latest about Riverton?" I asked, though of course she had. "Stock down 62% since we withdrew our offer. 3 board members resigned, and your friend Richard," she trailed off. "Not my friend," I corrected. "Richard has been demoted." Warren finally realized that someone who could lose a golden goose and a lifeline acquisition in the same month probably shouldn't be running the company. I nodded, feeling a strange emptiness with satisfaction shoving. "And Tyler?" "Gone within weeks of your departure. Turns out, MIT degrees don't automatically confer competence." She studied me carefully. "You don't seem as pleased as I expected." I swallowed my drink, watching the amber liquid catch the setting sun. "When you've been betrayed, you think revenge will feel better than it does." "Regrets?" she asked, concern flickering across her face. "No," I said quickly. "Not about leaving, not about protecting what was mine, just that I'd spent 11 years of my life somewhere I was never truly valued. Just that I'd confused a workplace for a family. Just that I'd given so much of myself to people who saw me as a resource, not a person. I ran into Warren last week," I said instead. "At that Italian place downtown, he was alone at the bar." "What happened?" "He asked if I would consider consulting for them, said they'd pay anything I wanted." Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? After everything?" "He said Riverton is barely hanging on, that they never realized how much I'd built until it all started failing." "And you said?" I smiled, remembering the moment Warren's face had fallen. I told him I was already where I needed to be, with people who saw my worth before they were desperate. The next morning, I finally agreed to meet Richard at a small coffee shop. He arrived looking disheveled, shadows under his eyes, his normally pristine suit slightly rumpled. "Thank you for coming," he said, sitting down with visible relief. "I wasn't sure you would." "What do you need, Richard?" I kept my voice neutral. He stared into his coffee. "You want, Jake, completely. I just want to know, is it worth it, destroying everything we built?" I studied him for a long moment. "I didn't destroy anything, Richard. I just took back what was mine." "We could have worked something out," he insisted. "If you'd just been reasonable." "Reasonable?" I interrupted quietly. "Like when you claim my pre-Riverton work as company property, or when you plan to replace me with Tyler behind my back." He had the decency to look ashamed. "It was never about winning," I continued. "It was about respect, about recognition, things I never got from you until you needed something." As I stood to leave, he grabbed my wrist. "Jake, please, I'm begging you, help us." I gently removed his hand. "The funny thing is, Richard, I'm not even angry anymore. That's the real victory." Walking away, I felt lighter than I had in years. My new company, Integrity Systems, had just signed its 10th client. Sophia and Diego were thriving as equals, not subordinates. Every morning, I woke up excited about the day ahead. The sweetest revenge wasn't watching Riverton struggle or seeing Richard humble. It wasn't even my success at Tech Core. It was realizing I'd finally built something no one could take away: my confidence, my vision, and a team founded on mutual respect. Some codes can be broken, but some, once were written, become unbreakable. Looking back now, I realized that my true victory wasn't in watching Riverton crumble or seeing Richard beg. It was in finally understanding my own worth. For years, I'd mistaken exploitation for opportunity, confusing a paycheck with respect. The code I'd written had value, yes, but so did the mind that created it. Sometimes we have to lose everything to discover what we truly deserve. In those darkest moments on my brother's couch, I found something I never knew I had: the courage to stand my ground. The sweetest revenge isn't making others suffer, it's building something so magnificent they can only watch from the outside, wishing they treated you differently when they had the chance. As I watch my new company grow, built on mutual respect and shared vision, I finally understand. Success isn't measured by what you take, but by what you create that no one can ever take from you.